I wasn't even prepared. This phone just jumped right on. Okay, we're live. So this is for you out there. I'm coaching one of my clients right now who is stuck lashing out at her partner, and she ends up feeling really regretful, remorseful, and just doesn't know what to do. And I was there. I was her. And so I'm going to coach her in here and share this with you. Maybe you too are stuck in this cycle of not being able to control your emotions and then ending up regretting having acted the way you did. So first of all, a relationship with a lot of love and a lot of war is better than a relationship with a little love and a little war. So first of all, if you're in this situation, you are in a place that feels awful at times, but you're in a place of potential growth, exponential growth. You are in a trigger situation because you're in front of real love, real emotions that go really deep inside of you. So I know that there are other couples out there, and that's what we're aiming at, where there is better communication. There's no breakdown. For you in the middle of breakdowns, just remember that you have what most people want. You have real love, and real love looks like shit sometimes, and it feels awful. So my client right now, she's in the middle of the work and it doesn't feel like it's working. So remember this, when it feels like it doesn't work, that's when it's working. And Wesley, a coach of mine, said that to me. That's when it's working. And that is profound, because you do the 12 steps or the 3 steps when you work with me. It is literally a rehab. It is just like an alcoholic or a drug addict. So anger is just as addictive as cocaine to the brain. John Gray told me that. And I know from when you look at the brain synapses, it's all about habits. And some of us have really strong habits because things make us feel good and give us a temporary relief. So that is what addiction is. And I really look at this lashing out and anger and staying stuck in an emotional prison, not being able to break out, going down that same old war path again and again and not getting anywhere. I look at it like an addiction. And there's a lot of signs on that as well. So some of us really need or build habits around things that give us a kind of escape. So some of us are more prone to these habits and these automatic and can't control our emotions. Whether or not you suppress your emotions and they swoosh up, or you're the outspoken person who just needs to take a breather and just wait a little, it's still a rehab, right? So it's still destructive patterns in our brain that makes us react. So we can't change that initial reaction. It's just like you put your hand on the stove, you go, oh, that's okay. So you're going to lash out. You need to accept and surrender that, and it will change over time. But your initial intention cannot be to change that immediate reaction. That you get to just learn to accept it and be okay with it. We can't, that just trust. But you can control and you can choose your reaction to your reaction. So the initial reaction, you lash out, but how do you then react to that reaction? You put your hand on the stove and you go, oh, fuck, it hurts. Because it does hurt. True love does hurt. It feels like it, and the reason it hurts, this is the amazing part. The reason it hurts and it feels like you're dying sometimes is because your ego is dying. So that's why everything inside of you just goes, because that ego, the ego that stands in the way of the natural abundance of love, that's the one that's dying. So it seems like we're going back to childhood trauma. He can trigger the beep out of us. He can say something so hurtful, and we can't help how we react. But you can react to your reaction. So just because you lashed out once, just because you screamed once, you don't need to continue to do it, even though you feel like you're going down the rabbit hole and you can't change. Practice actually changing your reaction to your reaction. At some point, you're going to be able to say, okay, wait a minute. What can I do right now without blaming, complaining, or hosting a huge pity party? And then you go lash out again, but you ask the question. So just be okay with whatever reaction you have, and know that that comes from a place of love and a place of value inside of you that you get to go back to in order to heal, right? So we all know the theory, I guess you do, I do at least, that you meet your husband or your wife, whoever it is, and you get back to childhood trauma. Your first experience with love from your mom, your dad, your caretakers, that is what you think love is, right? But then there's a greater, more peaceful love. But you get taken back to that because that stuff gets to come out and heal. And so we act really crappy towards the ones we love. At least I do, and my clients do, and they act crappy to us. And it's all a bunch of crap at some point. But when you do the rehab, when you actually reprogram your brain, and that's what's so amazing about our marriage and our trigger situations, is that you get to practice and reprogram your automatic and just look at it like you're in rehab. And when you're in rehab, you're making new habits and you're overriding old habits. So accept and surrender, acknowledge, I lashed out, I shouldn't have, it's okay. And sooner or later, you're going to be able to react to your action faster when you practice and you acknowledge your breakdowns and you explain it to your coach in your community, not your husband. He doesn't need to know all this stuff that goes on inside of you. You get to regulate your emotions with your coach, with your community, not including him at this point. This is your job, your responsibility to regulate your emotions. He may seem like a giant beep, but he's actually put in front of you to do exactly what he's doing, to trigger you and for you to get to practice to regulate your emotions. And just know that true love, whatever, there is a plan behind it, whatever this is in front of you. Nothing can make you feel that way that is not valuable for you. So we can go through life without getting triggered, but then there's no growth, right? There's no healing process. There is no, so it's easy to be very self-developed alone. It's very, very hard to be it when you're faced with your kids and your partner and all the stuff inside of you that you were faced with as a child. So you're actually breaking through to a new level of love that's possible for you that has not to do with what you were learned and taught that love was growing up. That's what feels like love. That's what your ego knows as love. But there is a higher love away from that trauma and away from that programming as a kid. And that gets to come out. So just know that there are steps and ways to continue to do the work. And when it feels like it's not working, it's working. Don't give up. So your lows, as I said in the previous video, are increasing, right? You may go down to a low, but that low is not as at a low level as the other low when you start doing this training. So you are moving forward, but it takes coaching, it takes acknowledgement and honesty, and it takes working on it on the spot while you're in it. So next time you get triggered, practice asking yourself these questions. Okay, what can I do right now without blaming, complaining, lashing out, or hosting a huge pity party? So those are the not to do's. And then there's tons of stuff to do that you get to practice. But while you're in the middle of your shit, you're not going to write down gratitudes, right? You just keep practicing and be grateful for you get to practice. You're still there. He's still there. If we're living alone on our own, we don't get as much practice. It may be more easy, but we don't get to practice. So to the woman out there in her beep who gets a gift that smells like shit, but it has gold inside when you open it, your present, your gold in your triggers and in your marriage, they're there. You get to unwind or mine that gold. And in the process of mining that gold, you're going to feel like you're dying or you're going to feel awful, but just know that that's your ego dying. That's your ego saying goodbye. Don't go back. Fail forward, fail faster. Keep recommitting to your goal of each step that you're practicing. If you're practicing with me, step number 1 is honesty. I have this story in my head that I married a loser. We can't live together when he's da-da-da-da. I'm making that story. That's the story running in my head. That's my story. That has nothing to do with reality. I choose to tell that story. So step number 1 is honesty. Step number 2 is taking responsibility, the 3 quick ones. And that is to choose to tell a different story or to be aware that that's possible or just take responsibility for the fact that you're telling that story, whatever that story is in your mind that's making you feel bad emotions, because it's always your story. So you may initially feel emotions and then you make a conclusion with your own story. If he really loved me, he would be home by now when I'm ready with dinner. If he really loved me, he would know that that triggers me and he would take out the trash. If he really loved me enough, he would do this, that, the other. That's a story that your brain is telling, right? Be honest about it, but take responsibility and then change it. And the third step in the 3 quick ones is choice. You do have a choice. You may not be able to fulfill, you may not be able to change the story, but you can realize that you do have an ability and a choice available for you to tell a different story. You may not be able to, but there's a choice to fail and recommit. Everything is a choice, but you don't get to feel like you have a choice if you don't go through the first 2 steps of honesty and then taking responsibility. And this is all something that you practice. So when you coach with me, we practice 1 step at a time. The first one is acknowledgement. Okay, what am I telling myself? What's really going on? How pissed am I? What's my emotions? What's my stories? And then there's this different step number 2 in the 12 steps if we coach for a year. That is accept and surrender. Stop trying to fix things. And then we go through that. So no matter what happens at home, boom, you stop and you practice that 1 step that you're in. Okay, what was I supposed to do? Accept and surrender. Stop trying to fix things. And that's how you implement new habits. So just know anger, lashing out, it's all addiction and destructive patterns in your brain that requires rehab, just like an alcoholic. And you're just as addicted to this wiring and this way of thinking inside your brain as an alcoholic is to alcohol. And nobody can do it alone. It's simply impossible. So you get to reach out for help. I have a lot of material on my website. You're very welcome to reach out. I love helping women in this area. I hope this was helpful. God bless you and have a blessed day with whatever comes its way. There is peace everywhere around us and we get to allow it to come into our lives. God bless you.